Look at that. It's already snow on the peaks. That's early. There's firewood delivery coming by in a bit. I think you can put it here. The neighboring farmer, Bruno, he sells firewood, and I'm gonna use the stove this winter. And I mean I've chopped some firewood last year, but it's not enough. And here on the land it's mostly beech and birch, so it's a softwood. And it's usually young trees, and I don't want to cut too much. I can thin it out definitely, but it's all very small trees, so yeah, I don't have the time to get my firewood ready for this year. You know, it needs to dry for a year or even more actually. So for the coming years I'll try to collect it myself, but it's just another job that has to be done, you know. Cutting firewood takes a long time. So I'm glad Bruno can deliver something. Keep me warm. I think I'll place it here, all of it. And then once I need it in the cabin, it's just kind of easy to bring it down, but now this is a good place to drop it off. If he can come here. Hopefully.
Down. Oh. Uno. Uno. Kick.
Yeah, that's a lot of wood. I have to make some nice piles here, but will keep me warm in winter.
Anybody home?
Hello? Hi!
How are the celebrities doing?
Good, man. Good to see you.
How are you doing?
He's back.
Well, yeah. I thought I'd check on my neighbor.
Check
I
on
don't know if
things.
he's done.
But are you back?
I'm back
Like-
for good. I finished.
You finished the
On
trip.
Friday I walked the last mile and
Wow.
then
Well,
got
how long have you been away? Like 3-4 months?
it's been since, well actually I left in April, so because I had the speaking to first and then I left, so I've been away for 5 months or so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good amount. I got sometimes I got a message from a guy who met you in Brighton, so that's how I know where you
no,
are.
in Bristol.
In Bristol,
Was he
somewhere there.
He was, yeah, because Brighton I'm not sure I came to Bristol, but in sorry, to Brighton.
Yeah.
But
could be
in Bristol he was actually, we were walking through a park. I don't know if I told you on some message or something. But it was really funny because we started talking and I looked sort of familiar to him, and so he directed that conversation to YouTube channels that people watch,
Yeah.
and then he sort of tested the waters and saying, "There's this Dutch guy in the Alps." And then I said, "Yeah, I know. I remember. I know that guy."
I
And he
think
said,
he asked for your email address or something. He wanted to reach out to you.
"It's fine." Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's been a while ago. I mean,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
were you there, right?
That was in way back in April, in May. But
Yeah.
while I had to sometimes respond, the other day you were posting some Instagram. I don't have Instagram anymore, and
No.
and I'm nowhere near. I don't really know what is happening on YouTube because you do long videos and it was impossible to watch.
You'll be walking like that. Because you walked. You started in England somewhere.
I started in Ireland.
In Ireland.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then you walked all the way
that's what I
home.
did.
And that, you had a little break here. Or you were here like.
I was here like 2 weeks ago. That's when you got the how do you say, the
I had
Sasquatch
I had
on
the trail
camera.
cam here, and there was a lot of other people I was just kidding through, and then I know this.
Yeah, so I had to interrupt when I got to Basel in Switzerland. I interrupt actually the journey for 2 weeks to help out in the parish, and then there was the wedding of my little sister.
Yeah.
And after that, I decided to just bring the car to Pinarolo, so I would have it in my way.
So, it's time for a stove. It's getting cold this week. It's very dry. So once the sun is gone, it gets around 4 degrees in the morning. So it's time for setting up a stove. I got this a while ago. This is a dedicated tent stove from Winterwell. I'll put the link in the description. I really like this one because I've been looking for a while for a good option. A tent stove sits a bit higher from the ground, so you have enough clearance so you don't burn the tent fabric. Although it's still advised to have sort of a heat reflection underneath it. And it's designed quite horizontal, so it doesn't heat up the pipe as much as a more vertical stove, because the pipe is going through the tent fabric and you don't want it to get too hot for obvious reasons. Got my own little stone quarry here. It's on the edge of the property. The cabins are up there. The tent is there. I'm gonna pick up stones to build up the wall. Just had to drop half of the stones there on the steep hill. It's so heavy, those stones. I had it only half full. Still I couldn't make it. It's also a little bit wet, so it's slippery. can see that the second rafter is a little bit too low on the underside. So that's why the boards or the battens go up a little bit. See, there's a bit of a curve in there, but I can fix that. It's going to be potatoes for the coming weeks. There's a lot more even in there. I'll take that out in a few days. Some plants are still good, so I can keep them in there, I think. Ah, this is nice. Oh wow. Fail. I'm trying some different things to make the stones smaller. Because ideally I have nice big long stones because that looks best in the wall and it works fastest, but they have to be very slim because of it's basically a veneer. Yeah, let me show you. Here, this is what I need to fill up. So that means that stones, they need to have a beautiful flat facing on this side, and these sides don't matter, but they can be too big. So for example, this one is too big for here. It's even too big for here, but it's okay for here, right? Because it needs to be flush with the wall. So that's one thing. So you'd say, why don't you use small stones all the time? Well, it needs to look like that this wall is just continuing like it has always been there, right? And here you can see they use a very big stone. Flat stones, bigger stones, all different sizes. That's the beauty of these walls. But obviously here you're more flexible because you're building a wall of 50 centimeters. So it doesn't matter how deep the stone is really. Sometimes it goes until the other facing of the wall, and sometimes just a little bit, you know. And here I'm quite limited because this part is even more slimmer than the other side. So it's a lot of work collecting stones of the right size and then cutting them to a certain, like ideally I have stones like this. Here, these I've just cut. I think this was one. No, this was another one. Even I could use this side, but this is a beautiful flat facing. I can use it here, I can use it even there. It's perfect. This one as well, and that one as well. Oh. colors are changing quickly now. I remember when I came here it was 4 October. It's end of September now. And you know the most beautiful day when everything is yellow and red and there's no green leaf on the trees. Last year it was around end of October, beginning of November. I think this year it's going to be much earlier because it was so dry in July. Beautiful time of the year. All of these stones, including that wall and including these big slabs, they all come out of the basement. These big ones were vertical and yeah, there was so much stone in there. Now it goes all in the wall. These are wall anchors. They're usually being put in when you do a veneer. This is a little bit more than a veneer. A veneer is basically when you have a very thin piece which you're cladding or veneering with stone like this. And if it's very thin wall, it might fall over. So you have some anchors where you can create it, connect it to the beams or connect it to the wall. Here it's not very necessary, but I'm just gonna put a few in just to make sure it's all holding up together. Especially where it's a bit thinner on the corner, I'll do a few of them. So a long stone like this needs to be very well supported, otherwise it breaks. It's good as a cornerstone because it ties everything together. You know, everything you build on here becomes one block. But when it's has a gap in here, through the weight of the wall it will probably break. Maybe not here because the wall stops here, so it's not very heavy, but if it's lower in the wall it will break. You know, but these are strong. So what I'm trying to do is to create no straight lines, right? So every stone needs to overlap. So this is not good because you you get a vertical line. So you try to avoid this because otherwise you get two different blocks and the wall's not connected. But if you do it like that, this one connects the stone next to it. That's how you get that's the principle of a strong wall. And there's a lot of friction between these stones when there's pressure. So that's also what it keeps together. And that's also the main difference with a brick wall, because a brick wall has cement or mortar in between every brick. And this is built stone on stone. And the lime mortar is just gluing everything together and adding extra balance. But actually the stones need to rest on top of each other, not on top of the cement so much. they're still a bit hard. So or they're not ripe, still a bit green too, or they're not cooked through. I think they're not cooked well. It's kind of difficult. It needs to be. I'm saving my coals for the bread.